This is Dr. Charles Parker, and you're listening to Core Brain Journal. It's a place where I connect both fresh discoveries and interesting different perspectives from advanced mind science with the realities of real people and everyday life down on Main Street. Welcome, folks. Here we are one more time, Dr. Charles Parker at Core Brain Journal, and we have a very interesting guy today because he's been out in a different reality that most of us never have even thought about. Perhaps we've admired, thought about it from a distance. I mean, the closest I came to it in childhood was the kids out on the drag strip in northern Indiana. But what's going on is Justin Peck. Welcome, Justin Peck. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Justin's a race car driver, folks. He is a person who has entered that different reality of racing automobiles, and he's going to tell us about that. But he has a different message. Of course, this is Core Brain Journal, and he's going to talk about his life with some of his emotional difficulties and how they wove themselves into automobile racing, what his experience is with the racing, how he's managed his life in spite of his challenges. I'm really looking forward to hearing it. We didn't talk much about it. We just had a little bit of an intro. Let me introduce you folks to Justin and tell you what's going on. He's talking to us from Salt Lake City, Utah. He's a professional off-road race car driver. We're going to ask about that in a minute. And he works for the Lucas Oil Series, the owner of the Race Pro Tech Racing Team, and the Gear 49 Motorsports Nutrition, and he is the author of a Bulletproof memoir. That's the name of the memoir, Bulletproof. He's living with a mental health disorder, and it really bipolar illness. Well, you know, as people who are familiar here with us, Justin, know that I'm got a little heartburn about what bipolar is. And but he's also been battling addiction. So we're going to hear all about that from his perspective. What he has done is he looks hard to find ways to keep his mind in the game of life, folks. He has regretfully attempted suicide and lived to tell about it. Racing, he says, is his drug. He needs to balance his enemy perspective with what I love to do, is what he said. Nutrition and eating right are part of my fuel, just as staying on top of my medications and noticing changes is to the success of my everyday life. So he's really paying attention to what's really going on instead of drifting through life. So Justin, tell us a little bit about how you got into this, your book. Tell us about yourself, if you will, please.
All right. Well, the book actually started probably 10 years ago, and it was based on just having a written account of my life, so that when my children got older, they had the opportunity to read about their daddy and what he was like when he was older. Mm-hmm. My youngest brother, a couple months before he turned 21, he overdosed on opiates and ended up passing away. Wow. And that kind of catapulted me into this mindset that if we don't tell our story now, then our story will be forgotten as time goes on. And so I started writing the book, and it was just, here again, it was just for my kids. It wasn't looking to be published. It wasn't looking for any of the fame or anything of that behind that situation. So 8 years later, and 38 chapters later, I took the book to an editor. I wanted her to clean it up and to make sure that it read well. And I was fortunate enough to have the editor tell me that, you know, this is a great story. This is a great message. And so I went through the next couple years of refining everything and making sure that it was readable for the general population. And here we are today. You know, I mean, we launched the book on January 1st of this year, and have had some pretty good successes with it.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. So What's the main messages you have there in the book? What is your of course, you have a large story, and I've written a couple books myself, and his question is, what are you trying to say? And you can't reduce it down into a sentence or two, but really the thought there is, it sounds to me like you're doing something very constructive. You're putting your life in perspective. Is that so?
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, how this whole process started for me is growing up. I knew that I was kind of a goofy kid. I was socially awkward. I was picked on quite a bit, and because of that, I pushed away from friends. I pushed away from family. I was always known as that kid that was just kind of back in the corner doing his own thing. So 11 years ago, I had woke up just a normal morning, nothing different, other than I had been kind of going through about a depression for 4 or 5 months or so. And so I wake up in the morning, I lean over, I kiss my wife, I get out, get dressed, get ready for work. I go upstairs, I kiss the kids, and I go out back and I grab my dog, and we go out and do our normal daily tasks. So as I'm driving around, music's playing, trying to be in my own little world, trying to put a smile on my face. And where I ended up was at the top of the canyon that I had been to quite often, kind of overlooking the valley below. So I let the dog out. The dog's running around, and I'm wanting to feel her sense of joy and her happiness, but it just wasn't happening for me. And so I sat there for 10 or 15 minutes, and in one brief moment of irrational thinking, I reached over to the center console of my truck, and I grabbed my pistol and I loaded it. I put it to my head and I pulled the trigger. And so in that period of time, of course, the gun didn't go off, thank heavens. And what I noticed in that brief moment was that I had basically given up. And I'm not a quitter. I've never been able to really quit at anything. I always do my best to progress and be successful in everything that I do. One of the big things that I noticed is after I had pulled the trigger, I unchambered the bullet. It landed in my lap, and I looked at it, and I could see where the firing pin had actually physically hit the bullet. So, there's honestly no explanation to it whatsoever. I mean, those are the type of things that don't happen. But in that moment, I went from being in a depressive state to having this massive amount of adrenaline coursing through my body, and it immediately pulled me out of that depressive state into a sense of well-being. Now, I know that sounds a little backwards, but so I get back in the truck. I drive down the canyon, and I call my doctor and kind of explain to him the course of events. And I sat with him. We went over some tests and the normal things that we do, and that's kind of where the diagnosis of class 1 bipolar came into play. And so, looking back now, I kind of realized that I had some type of mental blessing for a long time. Now, you made the comment that you don't like the word illness. Either do I, because I think that promotes the stigma. For me, I consider it a mental blessing, because without having that type of disorder, without having that type of mental issue, I would not be the man I am today. So finding that out, kind of going through my life, kind of realizing this is why I acted, the way that I did, and this is why I am who I am today. It kind of put everything into perspective to me. And so at the end of the day, my main focus is to bring awareness to people, to let people understand that they have a voice. And if they just use that voice to talk to the people that love and care about them, that you can push through anything, any life struggle that you have. You can absolutely 100% push through everything as long as you have the never quit mentality.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like what happened was, and forgive me for putting my psychiatric hat on a little bit, but the trauma and the remarkable pain that you were feeling, and that it sounds like you were in a beautiful place there, and were really marveling with it, but you were aware that you just couldn't pull the feelings together, and you were disconnected from the moment. And then by trying to harm yourself, you had a transformation, and in that process you did feel a sense of gratitude, and the fact that you were in this great place and you could actually pull yourself together and go on and move forward and do something regarding connecting with people. Is that overstated right there? Is that kind of what happened?
No, I mean, honestly, you're pretty much spot on. I mean, there was the one thing, and for me, you know, and one of the biggest things that I don't really like to try to talk about is like medication and how people should overcome this. All I can do is just tell my story, mm-hmm. and explain to them what I've done in my life. But I do know that at that one moment, I was at a low. I was at the low of lows, and for me to not have rational thinking, being able to live through that experience, it gave me a bigger perspective on life and the value of life, and being able to have a second chance. And so you're right. I mean, it's being self-aware, being, and I don't want to say selfish, but just having no concept of risk and no concept of consequence, into being placed into having that understanding of risk and consequence, mm-hmm. which has always been a big help for me.
Mm-hmm. So you entered the reality of the moment, yes. and transcended being stuck in yourself, and that was transformational for you. Now let me ask you a question. You started to say something about meds. Were you on meds at the time that this happened?
No, I actually wasn't on any medication, because I had when you have a mental illness, and because the stigma was so strong, you know, even back then, it was I was the master of hiding it. So I could hide the emotion very well, and I, you know, for me, I refused to label myself as someone who had some type of mental illness. And so when I realized that I had that, then yeah, I mean, it was the transformation. It was going from not knowing what was happening in my life to kind of getting some type of grasp and hold on my life. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds terrible, but it's so good. I mean, it's such an unusual experience to have something happen like that, where you went from one reality suddenly into another reality, and actually have coped with it. I mean, were you thinking about killing yourself when you said goodbye to your wife that morning?
No, I think that's kind of the crazy thing about it is because there was no intentions at all. I mean, when I kissed my beautiful children, and when I said goodbye to my family, there was no part of me that was saying goodbye forever. It was just saying goodbye for the day. Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you do for an occupation, so we could get a little picture on that as well? I mean, are you racing all the time, or were you doing? I couldn't quite catch what you were doing that day.
So I've been a construction guy most of my life. I started my own construction company when I was 17, and have been fortunate to be self-employed since then. So So that morning, I woke up and my normal day-to-day task would be, get in the truck and check on the job sites and check on the employees and those type of things.
So do you do commercial or residential?
I do a little bit of both. Actually, to be honest, I'm out of it now. After 2008, that was pretty devastating for a lot of people in the construction field, and I decided to choose another path. But back then it was both. It was residential and construction both.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know a little bit about it because I shoveled a lot of concrete when I was a kid. And
concrete, yeah.
It was, I thought it was a promotion for me to get on a road crew to get away from the shovel and actually handle the chute with the truck coming up. I mean, that was a badge of honor. So,
got ya.
Yes, a real promotion. But anyway, so back to you. So how does the racing and the automobile racing fit in with your story? Where does that take place?
So I've been racing for about 27 years now, and the adrenaline behind it, of course, has always been a huge part of it for me. But what I did notice as I got older, and as I've got older, is that even though I do take meds to help me keep my balance on day-to-day living, the biggest medication for me is my helmet. It's the chaos of the outside world can be going crazy. I can be in a depressive state. I can be in a manic state. I can be, I can be in any feeling that I am. But the second that I put my helmet on over my face, the straight focus on my path is very, very clear. And, it honestly doesn't make any difference of what's going on in life. The helmet to me is my medication.
Mm-hmm. So help us get the picture a little bit more. I'm not familiar with any of these racing companies. Are you doing stock cars? Are you doing Formula One? What are you actually racing?
No, so and I guess it's kind of a running joke in my type of profession. I don't do anything on asphalt, so all of my stuff is on the dirt, and we make fun of the asphalt guys because to drive on the dirt actually takes driving ability. So to put it into a little bit of perspective, it would be it's like being in a paint shaker for about 12 hours. So we do Baja 1000 type stuff.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we reach speeds up to 160 miles an hour, across the biggest bumps that you'll ever see. So it's pretty much, out of control all of the time.
Wow.
From outside looking in, it looks like you're out of control, but I've been doing it long enough that I feel like I have good car control, and then I also do short course racing as well. So it's still in an off-road truck, but it's on a track, and so you have big jumps. You're racing against 20 to 25 other people. We reach speeds up to 100, 110 miles an hour. We jump these trucks 200 feet and try not to crash. So it's a good time.
I would think so. Now, what kind of trucks what are you driving? When you say truck, every time somebody says truck, I think of a pickup truck.
Yeah. So they have the appearance of a pickup truck, but they're fully custom built. So we build our own vehicles. They're built to withstand the most brutal element that you can possibly think of. So yeah, here again, they look like a truck from the outside, but if you take off the fiberglass body, they look like something from a science fiction movie.
Fantastic. Now listen, I hope you can send it to Tiffany because she's the person that puts all this together, but if you'd send me a picture that I could use for the show notes, I'd be great, because I know people are going to be curious. Who is this guy? What does he do? What's he talking about? I mean, there's only so much you can describe verbally, and it'd be just great to see the picture of what you do. Now tell us a little bit about that driving experience when you do the Baja 1000. I mean, that's many days. What's that situation? How long does it take? well, you have like several drivers. You switch around. Does the car run the entire time? How does all that work?
Yeah, so we so this year is actually going to be a really, really good one. This is the 50th anniversary, so it's the full peninsula run. So it's 1,200. I think it's 1,287 miles this year. We do have 3 drivers, so it's me, and then I've got 2 other drivers that will kind of take driving responsibility. We'll be in the race car anywhere between 9 and 14 hours at a time, and it's man, I tell you, it's one of the most exhausting yet one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done in my life. You have to have the mental focus more than anything is the driving. So if you don't have mental focus, it doesn't matter how fast you are or how your ability to be able to go around corners fast or hit jumps fast. Anybody can go fast in a straight line, but it's keeping that mental focus. And so when you're in the race car for a long time, you do kind of wear out. You do get slower as the time goes on. That's why we, of course, switch drivers. But yeah, here again, I try to explain it to people. I try to show pictures and try to go that route. But for the most part, people don't really understand unless they watch a video or see a good picture of it.
I mean, a video would be fine, too, because I could load that up on the show notes. But is the vehicle that you're driving in the truck vehicle that we were talking about a moment ago?
Yes. Yeah. It's the same truck. You have to start the race with one truck and end with that same truck. Mm-hmm. So, and then we've got, in the 1,000, we'll typically have, anywhere between 35 and 40 people that follow us down the entire peninsula. So we have, the trucks, they don't get the best fuel mileage, so we can go about 140 miles per fill up. So we have our chase teams and they kind of leapfrog and go all the way down the peninsula.
Wow. So then how does the issue of your psychological challenges, how does that play itself out? I have it clear in my mind because you said it several times, and I get that you do well when you put that helmet on and you're driving. Do you see an impediment, however? Are there issues that occur when you're driving or dealing with the people on the way that throw you into a potential emotional dysregulation?
No. So when I'm driving, it realistically is the only time in my day-to-day activities when I'm driving it's the only time that I have complete focus. My brain shuts off enough where all the outside chaos goes away. So there's really no bad that comes from having the disorder during the race. And I will have to say that after the race, and the week or the 2 weeks that follow have a tendency of being pretty rough because you do live in that high for a long time. You do live with that adrenaline and the serotonin dump and the dopamine dump for 12 to 14 hours, and then when that goes away, that can be a trigger for me. So the days after the race can be hard, but during the race it's pretty much spot on.
So how are the people in Mexico with this whole race? I mean, there's so much bad press about being alone in the woods down there in Mexico with people being potentially dangerous. What's the situation like that?
Mexico is an incredible place to race in. You'll get a couple bad eggs, every once in a while. You'll get, like, if you break and you're stuck out in the middle of the desert, you have to be, self-aware of who's around you. But for the most part, I mean, you'll get hundreds of thousands of the Mexican culture, people down there just rooting you on and cheering it. They love our sport. I mean, they love our sport more than they love soccer almost, which is their national sport. So being able to be down in that area is, I mean, it's a blessing. It's incredible.
It sounds beautiful. So do you end up at Baja?
Yeah, so typically we start off in Ensenada, Mexico, which is about 45 minutes to an hour away from the border, from the San Diego border, and then we go all the way down, all the way down the peninsula into like La Paz and those areas. So yeah, we definitely do cover a lot of ground when we're in Mexico. We do have a lot of races in the States as well. In fact, I just barely got back yesterday from a race that was in Las Vegas that was 450 miles, and it's a culture thing. I mean, I do understand that when I say that I drive a race car for a living, people have this certain perception or this certain idea of what I do, but ultimately, here again, without seeing it, without experiencing it, without seeing video, it's really, really hard to explain.
Yeah, it's a different reality. That's what I was laughing about, because I was thinking about it, and I so much appreciate you talking about what's going on there, because it is difficult to put yourself in the shoes of somebody, with the kind of thing. I mean, I'm wondering about the small details. Where do you sleep?
Yes.
How do you get the car back? How do you actually manage the gas and the refills? I mean, there's so many details on something like that just stimulate the imagination.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of logistics that go into it. It's not my sport's not the one that you just show up with a car and drive. So you have to have a lot of guys. You have to make sure that they're fed. You have to go through pit strategy and know how far the truck can go. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot that's involved. I mean, ultimately, it's like with anything in life, though, right? So it doesn't matter what you do in life or what your passion is in life. There's always logistics, and there's always things that ultimately come down to preparation.
Yeah, so true. So now, do you speak about these issues? Do you speak with like mental health groups? What do you do besides drive, and how do you work with the message in your book?
So I do a lot of speaking. I like to speak in front of universities is one of the big things for me, because I mean, you get these young college kids that are going into a profession of mental health, and to be able to have them talk to or listen to me speak from someone who actually lives the experience instead of learning about the experience, I think helps the understanding just a little bit better. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm big about help with like life coaching and explaining to people the never quit mentality. I do a lot of STEM education, speaking with the younger kids, in high school and junior high, for the science, technology, engineering, and math programs that they have.
And just to interrupt real quickly, I was going to ask you to clarify it, because some of our listeners might not know, but say that again real quickly, and what that audience is. So STEM education. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, and it's a fairly new program that has been implemented over the last probably 3 or 4 years, and it gives good education for junior high and high school students to help them decide what path they want to go down. So for me to be able to take a race car down to a junior high and speak in front of 300 or 400 high school students, I can apply the science and the technology and the engineering and the math that's associated with our race car team, and it's a lot of fun to be able to see the smiles and to listen to the questions that these kids have, because it's that learning process. It's being able to hopefully one day be that person that
that 10 years from now I can have one of those kids come up to me and say, I remember you at my high school. You spoke about this, and now this is what I'm doing. I'm part of an off-road team, or I'm part of a race team, or I'm the driver and I'm racing against you. Those are the things that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is changing a person's life and really improving their lives. From your experience, do you talk about your mental health issues or not?
When it comes to the kids in the younger ages, I try to stay a little bit away from the mental disorder type conversation. Mm-hmm. Mostly because they're still young, they're still impressionable minds, and so I don't want to ever kind of glorify some of the struggles that I've had in the past, and so. But what I do talk about is a lot about the bullying and being bullied in school, because I dealt with that from kindergarten till the day that I graduated high school, and so I try to bring awareness to that. Explain to the kids that life is about tolerance. You want to have tolerance for your fellow classmates, and you want to promote kindness and promote love, and if you can do that, then ultimately you're going to be a better person as you grow up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, it's a very dramatic resolution of a long-standing conflict, and you're coming around so well. So, how old are your kids?
Wow, I have a few. I'm from Utah, so I have 4.
Are you in the club? That's the question.
Yeah, I guess it's part of the Utah club.
I got
so
you.
I have 4 children. They range from 11 to 24 now, 24, 25. Mm-hmm. And then I do have 4 grandkids as well. So it's I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed to have the children in my life, and my youngest boy, he's just like me. He struggles with some things here and there, but he also is a national race car driver. So he races off road, and it's fun as a dad to be able to watch him go out and win races. I actually probably get a better kick and a better sense of accomplishment to watch him stand on the podium than me. So it's good times.
I know how that is. Justin, you sound so young to have so many kids that are older like that. It's good to be making a difference like that. So then let's close with your book and where we could go if any of our audience folks wanted to get in contact with you and further take this conversation further down the path.
Yeah, so the book right now is for sale on my website. It's justinpeck.com, and on the website, we've got hardback, softback, and download versions available. We're also on Amazon. We did hit the Amazon bestseller list about 3 weeks ago, so that was a pretty good accomplishment there. But on the website as well, we also have I write several blogs and try to not necessarily give advice, but just kind of talk about my experiences and how I've overcame some of my life struggles. Mm-hmm. And then my email's there as well. And so I do like to hear from people and their questions and concerns and to be able to communicate with people who may be struggling at that particular time.
Well, that's fantastic. I appreciate your sharing your story with us. The issue for us and our audience and indeed me personally is looking at how people can reconstruct their lives and how just exactly what you said, people need to really stick with it. There's so many adversities in terms of recovery that are out there, not the least of which is the names that we call people. You had it when you were a kid, but we see it happen as adults. I mean, the whole diagnostic coding system winds up can be potentially destructive, and people get lost in the label of who they are based on that diagnostic code, and it diminishes who they are as a human being and where they're going with their lives. So we appreciate your
exactly
in that regard.
Well, for me, at the end of the day, and even though it took me a long time to realize it, the disorder does not define me. I'm not the disorder. I'm my own man. I've got a lot of life experience through a bunch of different things. One of the big things that I always try to promote, and one of the sayings that I always say and have, is that anything in life worth doing is worth overdoing, and that moderation is for those people who don't believe in their abilities. And I truly believe that if you have something in life that you want and that you dream for, you put everything that you have into that. And you may not be able to accomplish the goal in one way, but you'll always find a way to find success in the things that you do.
So well said. I really appreciate it. So we're going to sign off, Justin. Thank you so much for taking the time this evening. I don't know if the sun is set out there in Salt Lake City, but it's definitely set out here in Virginia Beach, and we just appreciate you coming on board and sharing your story. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Core Brain Journal. We're working every day behind the scenes to bring you reports that connect research benches with those street trenches. Here we share the complexity of mind science because, as you know, details really do matter. One of the most pervasive, misunderstood challenges is how commonplace medications, like those written for ADHD, are used so regularly without clear guidelines. If you think you'd like more specifics, take a minute to download my 2-page PDF packed with video links and references on the absolute essentials of how to start ADHD medications. They're easily available at corebrainjournal.com/start. Thanks for listening. Do connect and stay tuned. Together we can make a difference.